Now that you've seen the game board, client, and how turn order works, let's break down the very handy Parallel Cheat Sheet. This document, linked below of course, is very helpful for new players. After a few games, you likely won't need it anymore, but it's nice to have as a reference. Between this and the How to Play Parallel 101 video, you should have all of the basics to jump into your first game. However, we're going to continue covering how to build a deck and the various Paragons as well, so make sure you have subscribed below. You start every game with 30 life, and your deck is 40 cards. All 40 cards must be from your chosen parallel or from the universal parallel. At the start of each turn, you draw one card. The order of play after that is up to you. Consider the order that you take as the cards interact with each other. For example, Assault is a status that is active once you've dealt damage to the enemy player. The Lancer tank has an Assault ability that does 4 damage to the enemy player when it enters the field. So, you want to deal some damage with an ability, an effect, or an attack before you play the Lancer tank. Being good at Parallel means understanding how all of your cards and their abilities operate so that you can maximize their effectiveness. Eventually, you want to understand all of the cards so that you fully understand how your cards will interact with your opponents as well. In-game, you can always click on any card to read it, but you only have 75 seconds per turn, and by mid-game there will be lots to keep track of. Similarly, you will only get a few seconds to complete each action, like selecting a unit to target or which card to discard, so make that decision first. At the end of your turn, if you banked a card, you'll draw another card. There are 4 types of cards available for your deck: units, effects, relics, and upgrades. Units are character or creature cards that stay on the field until destroyed. Their health is persistent. They often also have abilities as well. Effects are one-time use cards that take effect immediately once played. These are like spells. Relics are played on the field and have their own abilities. Like units, they remain on the board until destroyed. Unlike units, they cannot be attacked and therefore are harder to remove. These are kind of like artifacts. Upgrades are cards that need to be added directly to a unit. Typically they're a buff. Some can be quite complex though. See Memento of the Fallen, for example. Finally, each deck has a Paragon, which does not get shuffled into the deck. Instead, it's in play on the game board from the start of the game. They each have a unique passive ability that is in play the entire game. They can also be played as a unit on the field and have active abilities as well while they are on the field. You would do well to learn all 15 Paragons, as they are often complex cards. They are visible as soon as the game starts, and they will heavily influence how your opponent plays their deck. Here's some basic terminology to get familiar with. These are pretty straightforward. Create is for tokens. Some abilities require the use of tokens. Cathari players will create a lot of tokens, as many of their abilities create clones, which are token-based units. Token-based units will appear on the field like a very basic card, but they did not come directly from a player's deck. Finally, we have keywords. These are specific to various card types, abilities, and parallels. They will always be called out on the card. However, I find that this is what most new players struggle to keep track of, and this is the reason why keeping the cheat sheet handy while you play is a good idea. Normally, when one unit attacks another unit, they deal their attack stat damage at the same time. So that means if 2 1/1 units were to attack each other, they would both be destroyed. Some units, however, will be armed. This can be a natural ability or added via an upgrade. Armed units deal damage first. For example, the Iron Core Rifleman. In the earlier example, if one of those units was armed, they would deal their 1 damage first, and since that's enough damage to destroy the other 1/1 unit, they would take no damage back. Assault is a status that is triggered when you deal damage to the enemy player. Note that damage to an enemy unit does not trigger Assault. Some cards will have assault abilities. Those are triggered or active only when assault status has been achieved. For example, the Unseen Commando gets +1/+1 when assault is active. So deal damage to the enemy before attacking with the Unseen Commando. Normally, a unit cannot attack on the turn it was summoned or played. However, if a unit has Battle Ready, it can attack on its first turn. See the Scanner Probe, for example. Some units will have Defender. This ability allows you to block an enemy attack with that unit. For example, if you have the Stoic Sellsword on the field and your opponent attacks you or another unit, you will be given the opportunity to block. That means the attack is redirected to your defender, the Stoic Sellsword in this case, instead. Muster is an ability that is triggered when a unit enters the field. A common example is the Mercenary Gunslinger. Units can also have Pacifist. This means that they cannot attack. They can still defend, however, if they have the Defender ability. Decay is a status that Earthen cards can apply. At the start of your turn, any cards with Decay and any units next to the unit with Decay will each be dealt 1 damage. Damage over time, if you will. Attuned means that at the start of the controlling player's turn, a unit switches between dormant and active. Effectively, they're only active on the field every other turn. See the Dauntless Axeman, for example. Finally, units that are shielded are immune to the next effect card that targets it. And that wraps up our Parallel Cheat Sheet breakdown video. I hope you found this informative, and if you did, consider hitting that subscribe button below. I've got lots of parallel content coming up, including how to use the deck builder and breakdowns for all 15 Paragons.